Fine. So today I will be talking about the Testng framework. Okay. First of all, let us see the relevance or the importance of Testng framework. Why it is used? Why do you guys need to study it? Right. Look. Firstly, the thing is that when you make Selenium scripts, okay, these are your Selenium scripts. Okay. When you execute them, you want to execute them in a certain order, one after another. Okay. Moreover, there can be a requirement that the data for these scripts has to be read from an Excel file or an XML file. Okay, right? Or we have to read the properties file as well. Fine. Okay. And along with that, there can be a requirement that you need to generate some reports as well. Okay, you need to generate some logs as well. Okay, what is logs? Logs means what happened at each and every moment. You need to log everything. If the script is running for 5 hours, right? Reporting means that you need to generate Excel reports or HTML reports. Okay. Now Selenium as a tool will only interact with the browser. Okay. Selenium as a tool is only present in this red box. Okay. Selenium will not help us to run the test cases in certain order. Okay. Selenium will not help us to build the test cases. It will not help us to build the reports. It will not help us to generate logs, read the data from Excel files or a properties file. Okay. That we have to do ourselves, and to manage all this, okay, to manage all this in a very organized manner, right, we use a centralized controller. This centralized controller can be Testng. People also prefer using JUnit, or they prefer using BDD tools like Cucumber. Okay, they also use Fitness. Okay, so it's completely up to you how do you want to do it. Okay, we'll be studying Testng. Alright, what these tools they do is that they read the data from the files, they call the test cases in a certain order. Okay, if you have to skip a test case, they also help you to skip the test cases, right? They generate the reports, they generate the logs, right? So this is what Testng is supposed to do. It's like a manager, it's like a coordinator which coordinates between the various entities and helps us to build the test cases. Right. So the first thing about learning Testng is that you need to install Testng as a plugin inside Eclipse. Right. So I am recording. I am recording. Okay. So over here, let me make a new project known as Testng Day 14. Okay, so today we are going to talk about Testng, right? So first of all, to work with this project Testng Day 14, you need to install Testng as a plugin inside Eclipse. Okay, just go to Google, right, and type Testng Eclipse, and you'll get the first link. You go to the first link and you go to this URL. Hold on. Yeah. So you need to install the Eclipse plugin. I hope everybody has got Eclipse 3.4 and above. Okay. So you need to use this URL. Alright. And I'll give the URL to everyone on Skype as well. Okay, so take this URL, go to Eclipse, right, prefer using Eclipse Luna, right, and guys, please keep yourself on mute, right. Okay, so I am also using Eclipse Luna, right, and go to help, install new software option will be there. Okay, click on this and paste the URL over here, hit the enter button, hit the enter button, and Testng will come up. Okay, select it, keep on clicking next, it will install and your Eclipse will restart. Alright, so I already have it installed. Okay, after restarting Eclipse, fine, what you need to do is that you need to go to Window, Show View, and hold on, just a minute, go to Other, and under Java you will see Testng. Window, Show View, Other. Okay, under Java you will see Testng. If you see this, that means Testng has been successfully installed as a plugin inside Eclipse. Okay, right. Now in Testng, what is the primary thing we do? The primary thing which we do in Testng is that we actually build test cases. Okay, so in the source folder I will create a new package, right, known as say test cases. Right, inside this test cases package, let us say I create a new class known as login test. Okay, package is like a folder. Inside it I have created a test known as login test, public class login test. Okay, now in Testng there is no main function. Okay, there are annotations in Testng. Right, you write @test public void do login. Okay, @test means that this function becomes an annotation. Alright, this function becomes an annotation. So what you need to do is that you need to move your mouse over this test annotation and we will get the option add Testng library. This is very important. Okay, right, you write @test and then add the Testng library. When you add it, you will see that in your project Testng would be present over here. Right, okay, and then move your mouse over @test. Okay, and import the test annotation. Right, you need to import it from the Testng library. Testng library has got nothing but Testng jar file. Okay, now when you write @test, this function becomes a test case. Alright, inside it you can write system.out.println login test. Okay, you can run this file. There is no need of having the main function. Okay, you can click on run icon and run it. In the console you will see that total test runs are 1, failures are 0, skips are 0. So it's executing one test, which is this do login. Okay, so it is printing login test over here as well. And one more tab will come up out here, results of running the test. Okay, you see the login test is passed. Alright, do login. You can also run this file by right clicking on it and selecting the option run as Testng test. Okay, alright, fine. So you can have this test case, and along with that I can have multiple other test cases in the file as well. Say do login and then do send mail. Okay, so you can write over here send mail test. Okay, then I can have another test case, that is do log out. Okay, alright, so you can have multiple test cases in a single file. You can have multiple functions, keep the @test annotation on them. Okay, and you can actually have them. The point which I want to put over here is that firstly the Selenium code would be written inside these functions. Okay, right, and secondly, generally the test cases which are dependent on each other, we keep them in the same file. Okay, generally this is what I have seen. Right, So when I run this program, it will say that it will print total test runs are 3. Okay, right, fine. But if you look at the output, it is printing login test first, then logout test, and then send mail test. Okay, the order is not the order which we want. Right, we want that first login should execute, then send mail, and then logout. As per us, we have written them from top to bottom, right? But the execution shows login, logout, and then send mail. Okay, login, logout, and then send mail. So how can we fix this? We can fix this by prioritizing the test case. Okay, you can write over here in front of this test case in a bracket that the priority of this test case is 1. The priority of this test case is 2. Right? The priority of this test case is 3. Okay, so you can prioritize your test cases. Okay, guys, please keep yourself on mute. Right, now after prioritizing the test cases, right, if I run this, you will see that it's printing login, send mail, and logout. Right, so it is executing in the order in which we want. Otherwise, you will not get that order. Don't think that it will execute from top to bottom. Now, in a test case, you also need to validate stuff. Okay, you also have to validate stuff. That is, what do you mean by validating stuff? You need to compare the actual and the expected values. Right, so there are lots of validations which you need to do. If the validation fails, then the test case fails. So over here also, in Testng, you can validate things. For that, we use something known as assertions. Okay, right. Now as for implementing the validations, you have an internal class known as assert. Okay, import the assert class from Testng. Alright, don't import it from JUnit. At times people make a mistake. They import the assert class from JUnit and the result doesn't come up. Okay, when you see the assert class, you move your mouse over it, right? You will also see lot of other import options, which is, it's not coming in my Eclipse. Otherwise, importing from JUnit also comes up. So don't do that, import from Testng. And this assert class has got various static functions. I told you, right, what static is. It can directly be accessed with the class. Right, one of the function is assert dot assert equals. Right, check whether both these, the actual and the expected values are equal to each other or not. So if I write A and if I write A, so the first value is the actual value, the second is the expected. Right, the actual value we'll use Selenium script to get the actual value from some web page, say the title of the web page. Okay, the expected value can be read from the Excel file. Okay, we'll talk about that later on. Fine. Now when you run this, it runs fine. Okay, all the 3 tests, they are executed. But if both of them are not equal, if I compare actual A with B, and if I run this, you will see that in the output, 3 tests executed, there is 1 failed. Okay, so if the assertion fails, right, automatically the test case would be reported as a failure. Okay, please note this point. If the assertion fails, then the test case fails. It's reported as a failure. Right, now you have got various, basically 2 types of assertion functions. The first one which you will be using is assert equals, and the second one most of the time we will be using is assert true. Okay, assert true, you give a condition and a message. Right. Now, before I talk about this, I had talked about a function, right? Is element present?
Sorry, one question actually.
Yeah.
See, I mean, can we pause the testing like that? If test case 1 fails, don't execute test case 2.
Yes, I am coming over to that point, Swaroop. The question being asked is that what if, basically this is login test, okay. If this is failing, I don't want to execute send mail and I don't want to execute logout. Right. So I'll come over to it, just give me 5 minutes. Okay. So basically what I'm trying to say is that assert true, right, and assert equal, these are the two types of assertions which we'll be using, right. Assert true is basically for some condition. Okay, a condition like is element present. Okay, right. Basically a condition like that, you can say a condition which evaluates to true or false. Okay, say 2 greater than 3, and in this message you can throw any error message. You can write any error message according to you, that element is not found, element is found, whatever is the error message. If this assertion evaluates to false, then it will fail. If this condition evaluates to false, then the test will fail and whatever error message you write over here will be thrown. Okay, the relevance of this assertion will be clear to you as we proceed, but for right now just accept it as it is. Right, if I run this, it will fail because 2 is not greater than 3, this is false, so it will fail. Right, and over here, right, so error message, you see this error message is printing, right. Okay, and moreover in Testng, if you refresh this project, you will have a test output folder. Okay, in this test output folder, index.html is present. If I open this index.html, this will represent my HTML reports. Okay, though not very impressive reports. Okay, we will see how to generate better reports, accessibility reports and all. Right, but these are the default Testng result reports which are not very impressive. Okay, so what I mean to say right now is that two things. Firstly, assertions can be used to validate stuff. Okay, there are 2 types of assertions. Right, and in Testng you get the default reports under test output folder under the project. They are automatically generated. Right, now in this case the test is failing. Coming over to the question which was asked. In this case the test is failing, the login test is failing. Right, this condition is evaluating to false. Okay, now if login test is failing, then these 2 tests, they should not actually execute. The send mail and logout, how will they execute when login itself is failing? These 2 test cases should actually get skipped. Right, so as I told earlier, okay, test cases which are generally depending on each other, most of the time we keep them in the same Java file. Okay, so that we can easily, easily maintain the code in the future as well. You as a tester, when you look at these test cases, you can directly look and work on them. Right, and secondly, the dependencies can be injected. Right, over here I can write that test do send mail, it depends on methods. Okay, this is the parameter, and you can give the name of the method do login. That this test case is dependent on do login, and the logout test is also dependent on do login. Right, so since we have kept the dependency of both these tests on the login test, okay, if now I run the script, okay, if the login test is failing, then both these test cases will fail. So if I run this, not fail but skip. Okay, so you will see that total test cases are executed are 3, failures are 1, skips are 2. Okay, if you look at this, then this fails, the do login fails, the next two are in yellow color. Yellow color means that the test case has skipped. Okay, right. You can also deliberately skip a test case. If you want to skip a test case deliberately by your side, you can also do that. You can throw new skip exception. Okay, skipping the test case. Okay, you can throw a skip exception. It is inbuilt inside Testng. Okay, you can throw a skip exception and you can skip the test case. When you run this, so you will see that all the 3 will get skipped because the first one got skipped. Okay, so if you, what is the use of deliberately skipping the test cases? Look, at times there are 1000 test cases. Okay, out of 1000 test cases, you just have to execute 100. So you will have to deliberately skip those 900 test cases when you run everything together. So over there you can use this skip exception. Okay, I am not saying that you will write through new skip exception in each and every test case, but I will tell you later on. You can control which test case to skip from the Excel file. Okay, right. Now over here we saw simple things. We saw 3 test cases. We saw prioritizing them. We saw assertions. Like we saw how we can make them dependent. One test case can be dependent on multiple methods as well. I can make logout test dependent on both do login and do send mail as well. I can put the name of both the test cases. It's completely up to you. Okay, so this is how you can work out. Alright, fine. Now what if I have to execute one test case multiple times with different sets of data? This is known as parameterization. Okay, this is known as parameterization. What you can do is that, hold on, let me make a new class over here. Okay, known as say register test. Say you are registering on any website. Okay, so public void do register. Okay, now I have to execute this test multiple times with different sets of data. Okay, so how do you do that? For doing this, we use an annotation known as @data provider. Okay, what this annotation does is, it actually, I'll tell you the diagram. What is data provider? Data provider, it helps you in creating a 2-dimensional array with certain number of rows and certain number of columns. Right? Okay. Now number of rows should be equal to number of times you want to run the test. The number of rows are equal to number of times or number of executions of the test. Okay, the execution are 10. Okay, you want to run the test case 10 times, then you will be having 10 rows in this 2-dimensional array. Okay, right. How we build this array, I'll talk about that in some time, not now. Just hold on, just understand the concept first. Okay, and number of columns would be equal to total number of parameters you have each time. For example, in registration test, we have got parameters like username, password, email, phone number. So we have got 4 parameters. So what we will do is that we will actually keep 4 columns, 1 column for each of these parameters, and we are going to execute this test case 3 times with different sets of data. So we have got 3 rows. Okay, that's what the data provider does. Okay, the data provider actually returns you something known as an object array, a 2-dimensional object array. Okay, inside this we make a 2-dimensional object array known as data. I make it with 3 rows and 4 columns. Okay, the first parameter in the bracket represents number of rows in the 2-dimensional array, and the second parameter represents number of columns. Okay, right. So this data provider will be supplying the data to the test. Right, it will first organize the data in a 2-dimensional array and then it will be supplying to the test. So let's fill up some dummy data inside it. You can fill up row 1. Okay, data 0 0 equals to say username 1. Data 0 1 equals to password 1. Then some email 1@gmail.com. Okay, and then the phone number. Okay, so this is the row 1, 0 0 0 0 1 0 2 0 3. This will actually represent the rows, right? So in a 2-dimensional array. Okay, right, so this is 0 0, this is 0 1, this is 0 2, this is 1 1, right? Oh, sorry, 1 0, 1 1 1 2, like this. Okay, so this is row 1. So the second row row 2 will have this parameter as 1, and say you to email 2@gmail.com and some other phone number. Okay, and similarly you can have row 3. Okay, you will have 2 out here, u3, p3, email 3 and some other phone number. Okay, and you can return this data array. That's it. This is how your object array will look like. This is how your data provider will look like. It will just have this 2-dimensional array. It will have the data set inside each row. Number of rows would be equal to number of times you want to run the test, and number of columns would be equal to number of parameters. Okay, and you return the data. That's it. Okay, now you can link this test with this data provider. You can write over here that the data provider for this test is get data. Okay, so I'll go step by step so that you guys also don't do a mistake. Right, the first thing is that you need to make a data provider. The second thing is that you need to make a 2-dimensional array with certain rows and columns. Right, and you need to return the 2-dimensional array. The third thing is that you need to link up the test with this data provider. Okay, right, and the fourth thing and the most important thing is that the number of input parameters in this test should be equal to number of columns. String name, string password, string email and string phone number. 4 parameters should be the input parameters. Okay, the input parameter should be same as number of rows, and that's it, nothing else. Now Testng, when I run this code with Testng is designed in such a way that it will read that the data provided for this test is get data. It will retrieve the data, okay, and it will see that fine, there are 3 rows. It will automatically call this test case 3 times, okay, and every time it will pass over the parameters into these variables. When you run this code, you will see that the total test cases run are 3. You see that in this output, it will be more clear. So first it is executed with U1 P1, then U2 P2, U3 P3. Right. So one test case is there, but it is getting executed with multiple sets of data. Right. In yesterday's class, I had told you how to read the Excel files and all and employee API. So you can actually put this data inside Excel files and read it from there. Try and do that when you go back to your place. Okay. Right. Go and read this data from the Excel file into the 2-dimensional object and okay, write a quite dynamic code for that. Okay, we'll discuss this. We'll discuss how to read as well, but just try it out. Okay, right? So this is about the data provider. That is, it can help you to run one test case multiple times, and each time you can have a different kind of validation as well. Right? We will go for it, but first understand the configurations. Okay, fine. Now I made 2 tests over here, login test, which actually had got 3 test cases, and register test, which is having 1 test, but it is executing multiple times. Okay, now I can run each and every test individually. I can simply run it. Okay, right, but what if I have to run both the tests in a batch? That is, I want to run them together. Alright, for that we use an XML file known as testng.xml. Okay, hold on. Just a minute. I'll copy the XML file in my project. Okay, now this testng.xml, okay, in this test you can have, in this XML you can keep the test cases like this, that firstly the name of the test, the name of the first test is login and send mail test. You can give any description. The class for this test case is, you have to give the complete class in the package test cases. This is the test cases package, right? You have the login test. Okay, so you need to write test cases dot login test. Right. Then the next test is register test. Okay, it is inside the class test cases dot register test. Alright, so test cases dot register test, test cases dot login test. You have to mention the names, the fully qualified names of your test cases inside this XML under the classes tag. Make sure you close all the tags and all. If you are not closing any tag or anything goes wrong, if I forget this bracket, it will not run. Alright, it will not run. And the tests mentioned in this XML file under this current test suite, right, these tests will be executed in a serial manner from top to bottom. Okay, so whatever test cases you mention in this XML file, those will be executed from top to bottom. If I run this XML, right click, run as Testng suite, so so it will actually write total test runs are 6, failures are 0, skips are 3. If you look at this output, so everything will be displayed. Okay, so over here, do login test I was deliberately skipping, because of which the other 2 tests were also skipping. Right, So if I remove the skip exception, if I fail the test, right, if I right click on testng.xml, run as Testng suite, so you will get it like this. It's failing, right? So it's just a common thing which we discussed earlier as well, right? So this is about Testng. You can also use and to generate better reports, because the reports which are generated out here in this test output folder by default aren't very impressive reports. Okay, you can use Maven also. So we will be discussing about that. I hope you guys have seen the Maven tutorial which I had asked you in the last class to watch on qtpselenium.com. So anyways, right,